The red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the human warship as another explosion rocked the vessel. Captain Park Hyun gripped his chair and watched the main screen show enemy ships surrounding them on all sides. The Vorthan Empire had finally broken through Earth's outer defenses. "Sir, we're getting reports from all sectors," his communications officer said. "The enemy has taken Mars Colony and Europa Station. They're moving toward Earth now." Park Hyun nodded grimly. After 3 long years of war, this moment had finally come. The Vorthans were stronger, faster, and had better weapons. Everyone knew this day would arrive. "Send the retreat signal to all remaining ships," he ordered. "Fall back to Earth." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out as human forces pulled back from every battle. The Vorthan Empire celebrated each victory. Their massive black ships moved like deadly shadows through space, crushing any resistance in their path. On the Vorthan flagship, Emperor Thexaval stood in his command center watching the human retreat with satisfaction. His tall gray form cast a long shadow as he studied the battle reports. General Mordek approached him with the latest updates. "Your Majesty, the humans are running from every system," the general reported. "Our forces have taken 12 of their colonies without major losses." "Good," the Emperor replied in his deep voice. "These humans thought they could resist us. Now they learn what happens when a small species challenges the mighty Vorthan Empire." The Emperor had conquered 17 other species before setting his sights on humanity. Each time the pattern was the same. First came the invasion, then the surrender, and finally the slaves. Humans would be no different. On Earth, in the capital city's government building, 2 people sat in a quiet office, watching news reports of the approaching enemy fleet. Kim Jae, a middle-aged diplomat with kind eyes, sat across from Lee So-min, Earth's chief ambassador. Both appeared calm despite the chaos outside their windows. "The Vorthan ships will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours, Lee So-min said, reading from her tablet. "All major cities are preparing for surrender." Kim Jae nodded thoughtfully. "Have you prepared the documents we discussed?" "Yes, everything is ready," she replied, "though I still think this plan is incredibly dangerous." "Sometimes the most dangerous path is the only path to victory," Kim Jae said softly. Outside, people filled the streets in panic. Some tried to flee to the countryside while others gathered in shelters. The mighty human space fleet that once protected them was gone, scattered or destroyed. Only a few ships remained, and they were no match for the Vorthan armada. The Vorthan ships arrived exactly as predicted. Massive vessels blocked out the sun as they took positions over every major city on Earth. Their dark hulls gleamed with weapon arrays that could destroy entire continents. Smaller ships landed in city centers, and alien soldiers marched out to begin the occupation. Emperor Thexaval himself came down to Earth's surface in his golden shuttle. He chose the largest government building in the capital as his temporary palace. Within hours, Vorthan flags flew over human cities worldwide. General Mordek brought him reports of the swift occupation. "The humans offered almost no resistance, Your Majesty. They seem to be cooperating with our forces." "Of course they are," the Emperor said. "They know they cannot win." "This makes our job easier." But something puzzled the general. In his experience conquering other worlds, the defeated species usually showed fear, anger, or despair. These humans seemed different. Many appeared almost relieved, as if a great burden had been lifted from them. That evening, Kim Jae and Lee So-min were brought before the Emperor in the great hall he had claimed. Fourth-hand guards in black armor escorted them through corridors now decorated with alien banners. The Emperor sat on a temporary throne, looking down at the 2 humans. His red eyes studied them carefully. Behind him stood General Mordek and several other Vorthan officials. "So, you are the leaders of this defeated world," the Emperor said in accented English. "We represent the Earth government in matters of surrender," Lee So-min replied formally. "Surrender." The Emperor seemed to enjoy the word. "Yes, that is exactly what this is. Your species fought bravely, but you were never going to win against us." Kim Jae stepped forward slightly. "Your Majesty, we understand the situation completely. Earth is prepared to accept whatever terms you offer." The Emperor smiled, showing sharp teeth. This was easier than he expected. Usually, defeated leaders pleaded for mercy or made desperate offers. These humans seemed to accept their fate without question. "Tomorrow we will hold a formal surrender ceremony," the Emperor announced. "Leaders from across the galaxy will witness humanity's defeat. It will send a message to any other species that might think of resisting us." As the guards escorted them away, General Mordek noticed something strange. Kim Jae had smiled slightly when the Emperor mentioned the ceremony. It was not the smile of a defeated man, but something else entirely. That night, across Earth and in hidden bases throughout human space, a strange thing happened. The remaining human military units received coded messages. Instead of orders to fight or hide, they were told to wait and prepare for something called Protocol 7. Park Hyun, now commanding one of the last human ships hiding in an asteroid field, read the message with confusion and growing hope. Protocol 7? His first officer asked. What does that mean? I'm not sure, Park Hyun replied. But if I know Kim Jae, he has something planned that none of us can see yet. Back on Earth, in a secret bunker beneath the city, a small group of humans worked frantically at computer terminals. Choi Min-ho, a brilliant engineer, coordinated their efforts while Han So-young managed communications with hidden resistance cells. Are you getting the data we need? Han So-young asked. Yes, Choi Min-ho replied, his fingers flying over the keyboard. The Vorthons are so confident they're not even trying to hide their ship designs and communication codes. They're broadcasting everything in the clear. Perfect, she said with a grim smile. Keep recording everything. We'll need it all for what comes next. The surrender ceremony was set for the following day. The Emperor expected it to be his greatest moment of triumph. He had no idea that Kim Jae and the other human leaders were not planning to beg for mercy. Instead, they were preparing to activate something the Vorthons had never heard of. Something that would turn their moment of victory into the beginning of their greatest defeat. As the sun set over the conquered Earth, Kim Jae sat in his cell reviewing documents that Lee So-min had smuggled to him. Ancient treaties, old laws, and forgotten agreements that most species had ignored for centuries. Tomorrow, he whispered to himself, we'll see who really understands the rules of this galaxy. The Great Hall buzzed with activity as alien dignitaries from across the Vorthon Empire gathered to witness humanity's surrender. Representatives from the 12 conquered systems attended, along with ambassadors from neutral worlds who wanted to see the Empire's power firsthand. Emperor Thexaval sat on his golden throne, wearing his finest ceremonial robes. The crown of the Vorthon Empire gleamed on his head as he surveyed the assembled crowd. This would be remembered as the day the Empire reached its greatest size. Kim Jae and Lee So-min were brought into the hall wearing simple clothes, their hands bound with energy restraints. The crowd murmured as they saw the defeated human leaders. Some aliens looked pleased, others seemed curious about these strange creatures who had dared to fight the Empire. Citizens of the galaxy, the Emperor began, his voice carrying through speakers to every corner of the room. Today we witness the final surrender of the human species. After 3 years of pointless resistance, they finally understand their place in our empire. The crowd applauded. General Mordek stepped forward with a data tablet containing the terms of surrender. The terms are simple, the Emperor continued. First, all human military forces will disband immediately. Second, all human technology will be turned over to Imperial scientists. Third, the human population will be relocated to work camps throughout our territory, where they will serve the Empire. Lee So-min listened calmly to each term. When the Emperor finished, she stepped forward. Earth's government accepts these terms, she said clearly. A cheer went up from the crowd. The Emperor smiled broadly. This was exactly how a surrender should go. Quick, complete, and without drama. But Admiral Rexthor, the Vorthon fleet commander, felt uneasy. He had been monitoring deep space communications all morning and detected strange signals coming from distant star systems. When he tried to trace them, they disappeared. Fourth, the Emperor continued, humanity will provide workers for our mining operations on captured worlds. Fifth, human leaders will be held as prisoners to ensure cooperation from the population. Kim Jae raised his head. Your Majesty, might I request a private audience to discuss some administrative details about implementing these terms? The Emperor looked surprised. Most defeated leaders just accepted their fate quietly, but this human seemed to have something specific in mind. Administrative details? General Mordek asked suspiciously. Yes, Kim Jae replied politely. There are some legal matters regarding Earth's surrender that require your Majesty's personal attention. Old treaties and such things that bureaucrats usually handle, but given the importance of this moment, I thought you should know about them directly. The Emperor considered this. He enjoyed being involved in every detail of his conquests, and legal matters were often important for maintaining control of new territories. Very well, he decided. We will meet privately after the ceremony. The formal surrender continued with Lee So-min signing document after document. Each paper represented another piece of human freedom given away. The alien dignitaries took pictures and recorded videos to send back to their homeworlds. Meanwhile, in hidden locations across Earth and beyond, the real work was beginning. Choi Min-ho and his team of engineers had spent the night analyzing Vorthon ship designs and communication systems. They now understood exactly how the Empire's fleet operated. Their security is terrible, Choi Min-ho reported to Han So-young. They've never fought an enemy that could match their technology, so they don't bother hiding anything. Good, she replied. Are you ready to broadcast the data packages? Almost. Dr. Yang Jiwoo's biological analysis of the Vorthon species is complete too. We know their weaknesses now. In another part of the city, Dr. Yang Jiwoo finished her report on Vorthon physiology. The aliens were strong and fast, but they had limitations that could be exploited. More importantly, she had identified ways to disrupt their communication implants that all Vorthon soldiers used. The surrender ceremony ended with the Emperor making a grand speech about the expansion of his empire. The alien dignitaries left feeling impressed by Vorthon power. Everything seemed to be going exactly as planned, but Park Hyun, still hiding in the asteroid field with his ship, received new orders through the secret communication network. Instead of staying hidden, he was told to move his ship to specific coordinates and wait for further instructions. Sir, these coordinates are in open space, his navigation officer reported. If we go there, enemy scouts might find us. I know, Park Hyun replied. But Kim Jae has never been wrong before. If he says go there, we go there. Similar orders went out to every remaining human ship and resistance cell. They were told to move to designated positions and prepare for something called implementation phase. Back in the Imperial Hall, the Emperor met privately with Kim Jae. General Mordek and Admiral Rexthor attended, along with several other high-ranking Vorthon officials. Now then, the Emperor said, settling into his chair. What are these administrative details you mentioned? Kim Jae stood calmly before them, no longer bound by restraint since the surrender was complete. Your Majesty, in my role as Earth's diplomat, I've spent many years studying galactic law. There are certain ancient treaties and conventions that govern warfare between species. Yes, the Emperor said impatiently. What does this have to do with anything? Well, Kim Jae continued, when your empire conquered Earth, certain automatic protocols were triggered, legal obligations that date back thousands of years. Admiral Rexthor frowned. What kind of protocols? The kind that most species have forgotten about, Kim Jae replied with a slight smile. You see, Your Majesty, you forgot about Rule 34 Alpha of the Galactic Warfare Conventions. The Emperor laughed. Human, you are defeated. Your species is conquered. No ancient law can change that now. Perhaps not, Kim Jae agreed. But Rule 34 Alpha doesn't change the fact that you conquered us. It changes what happens next. General Mordek activated his tablet and began searching through legal databases. I've never heard of this rule, he said. Most people haven't, Kim Jae replied. It was written long ago by species that no longer exist, but the law is still valid throughout this galaxy. The Emperor was getting annoyed. Explain this rule, human. Kim Jae clasped his hands behind his back. Rule 34 Alpha states that any species achieving interstellar conquest becomes bound by the Terran Defense Pact. By conquering Earth, you have automatically triggered humanity's membership in the largest military alliance in galactic history. The room fell silent. The Vorthon officials looked at each other uncertainly. That's impossible, Admiral Rexthor said. Earth was isolated. You had no allies. We didn't need allies before, Kim Jae replied calmly. But now that you've conquered us, we have 17 of them. General Mordek's tablet chimed with search results. His face went pale as he read. Your Majesty, he said quietly, I found references to this rule in the old databases. It appears to be legitimate, the Emperor stood up angrily. What does this mean? Kim Jae's smile grew wider. It means, Your Majesty, that Lee So-min wasn't negotiating our surrender this morning. She was filing the paperwork to activate the galaxy's oldest and most powerful military alliance. Against whom? The Emperor demanded. Against you. The Emperor stared at Kim Jae in disbelief. Around the room, Vorthan officials frantically searched through their databases for information about this ancient rule. "This is ridiculous," the Emperor said. "Even if such a rule exists, who would enforce it? The species we conquered are weak and scattered." Kim Jae shook his head slowly. "Your Majesty, that's where you made your biggest mistake. You thought the species you conquered were destroyed. But the Terran Defense Pact requires all member species to preserve themselves in secret, waiting for the day when someone would activate the alliance." General Mordek looked up from his tablet with growing alarm. "Sir, I'm finding more information about this pact. It was signed by 23 different species over 2,000 years ago." 23? Admiral Rexthor asked. "But the Empire has only conquered 17 species before humanity." "Exactly," Kim Jae replied. "Which means 6 species are still free and waiting to honor their commitments to the pact." The Emperor began pacing around the room. His red eyes glowed with anger as he processed this information. "Even if this is true," he said, "these species have been hiding for decades or centuries. They cannot possibly have maintained military forces capable of threatening the Empire." Kim Jae smiled again. "That's what makes the pact so clever, Your Majesty. Each species was required to maintain hidden military capabilities specifically for this moment. They've been preparing for this day since you conquered their homeworlds. In a secret facility beneath the ruins of the Melodian homeworld, Prime Singer Eris received the activation signal she had been waiting for 73 years. The peaceful Melodians had been thought extinct since the Vortan conquest, but thousands had survived in underground cities. "The signal has come," she announced to her council. "The humans have activated the pact. Are our ships ready?" asked her military advisor. 100 vessels fully crewed and equipped with our latest technology," she replied. "The Vorthans think we are a peaceful species who could never fight back. They will learn otherwise." On the warrior world of Cronin Prime, War Chief Brutus received the same signal in his mountain fortress. His people had pretended to accept Vorthan rule while secretly building the largest fleet of warships in their history. "Brothers," he roared to his assembled captains, "the day of vengeance has arrived. The humans have given us the excuse we needed to destroy the empire that enslaved us." His warriors cheered and ran to their ships. Within hours, the Cronin battle fleet would be moving toward Vorthan space. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as species after species received the activation signal. The Etherians powered up their advanced technological weapons. The Zephyrians prepared their fast scout ships. The Crystalline Collective activated mining ships converted into massive weapons platforms. Back on Earth, Commander Veltrak of Vorthan Intelligence burst into the private meeting room. "Your Majesty," he said urgently, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from 17 different star systems. Something is happening." The Emperor turned to Kim Jae with fury in his eyes. "What have you done?" "I haven't done anything, Your Majesty," Kim Jae replied calmly. "I simply informed you about a law that was already in effect. The moment your ships entered Earth's atmosphere, the Terran Defense Pact was automatically activated." General Mordek was reading more information from his database search. "Sir, according to these records, the pact includes mutual defense clauses. If one member is attacked, all members are required to respond. But humanity attacked us first," Admiral Rexthor protested. Kim Jae shook his head. "Actually, no. Your empire declared war on humanity and invaded our space. According to galactic law, that makes you the aggressor. The other species are now legally required to defend us." Limda Hai, working in her hidden computer center, finished decoding the final confirmation signals from the allied species. She sent a message to Han So-young. "All 17 species have confirmed activation. The largest fleet in galactic history is now moving toward Vorthan space." Shin Woo-jin, the historian who had helped research the ancient treaties, added his own report. "The legal framework is solid. Every neutral species in the galaxy will recognize the legitimacy of this alliance. The Vorthans cannot claim this is an illegal attack." The Emperor realized the magnitude of what was happening. "How long do we have before these fleets arrive?" Commander Veltrak consulted his instruments. "Based on the energy signatures, I estimate between 6 and 12 hours depending on their fastest ships." "Impossible," the Emperor said. "No species could mobilize that quickly." "They didn't mobilize today, Your Majesty," Kim Jae explained. "They mobilized years ago when you first conquered them. They've been waiting in hidden locations throughout the galaxy, ready to respond the moment the pact was activated." Admiral Rex Thor suddenly understood the full scope of the situation. The retreat. The human military retreat wasn't a defeat, it was positioning. Kim Jae nodded. Every human ship that ran away from your forces was actually moving to predetermined coordinates. They're now serving as navigation beacons and communication relays for the incoming Allied fleets. Park Hyun, still waiting at his assigned coordinates, received new orders from Earth. His small ship was to guide a massive Etherian battle group to the main Vorthan fleet positions. Similar orders went to every other human ship. Sir, his communications officer reported, I'm detecting massive ships dropping out of hyperspace. The signatures don't match any known human or Vorthan designs. Those would be our allies, Park Hyun said with satisfaction. Signal them our fleet positions and tactical data. General Mordek looked up from his tablet with growing panic. Your Majesty, I found more details about the pact. It includes something called the Justice Protocol. Any species that conquered a pact member becomes a legitimate target for total warfare. Total warfare? The Emperor asked. No rules, no mercy, no quarter given, Kim Jae explained. Your empire will be treated the same way you treated the species you conquered. Complete destruction of military forces, occupation of territory, and removal of leadership. The Emperor finally realized the trap he had fallen into. By conquering humanity, he had not gained another slave species. Instead, he had accidentally united every species his empire had ever wronged into a single, massive military alliance. This cannot be legal, he said desperately. At that moment, a new figure entered the room. Judge Arbitrator Quell of the ancient neutral Korth species materialized via hologram. The Korth had served as galactic legal arbitrators for over 3,000 years. Emperor Thexaval, the judge said in a voice like grinding stone, I have reviewed the relevant laws and treaties. The activation of the Terran Defense Pact is completely legal and binding under galactic law. The Emperor stared at the hologram in horror. If the Korth said it was legal, then every neutral species in the galaxy would accept it as legitimate. Furthermore, Judge Arbitrator Quell continued, your empire's actions over the past decades constitute crimes against multiple species. The alliance formed against you is not only legal, but justified under the principles of galactic justice. Kim Jae bowed respectfully to the hologram. Thank you, Your Honor. Earth appreciates the Korth Confederation's recognition of our legal position. The judge nodded and disappeared. In the silence that followed, everyone in the room understood that everything had changed. The Emperor looked at Kim Jae with a mixture of rage and grudging respect. You planned this. You knew about this rule before the war even began. Yes, Kim Jae admitted. We knew that fighting your empire directly would be impossible. But we also knew about the old laws and treaties that most species had forgotten. We realized that sometimes the best way to win a war is to lose it first. Across the galaxy, the greatest military mobilization in recorded history began. Species that had been thought extinct emerged from their hiding places with fleets more powerful than anything they had possessed before their conquest. On the bridge of the Etherian mothership Star's Vengeance, Commander Zarthek studied the tactical displays showing Vorthan fleet positions. The Etherians had spent 57 years developing new weapons technology in secret, waiting for this moment. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, his tactical officer announced. Excellent. Signal the human coordinator that we are moving to attack position Alpha 7. Park Hyun received the message on his small ship and confirmed the coordinates. His vessel, barely large enough for a dozen crew members, was now guiding a fleet of massive alien warships toward the main Vorthan battle group. It's strange, his first officer observed. A week ago we were running from the Vorthans. Now we're leading their enemies to destroy them. That's the beauty of Kim Jae's plan, Park Hyun replied. He turned our apparent weakness into the galaxy's greatest strength. On the Kronan battlecruiser Blood and Honor, War Chief Brutus addressed his warriors over the ship's communication system. The Krons were a fierce species that had never truly accepted defeat, even when their homeworld was conquered. Warriors of Kronan, he roared. For 41 years we have waited for this day. The humans have given us the legal right to destroy our oppressors. Today we reclaim our honor and avenge our fallen. His warriors cheered throughout the ship. The Kronan fleet consisted of converted mining vessels and hidden military ships, but they were crewed by beings who had spent decades planning for revenge. In the underground cities of the Melodian homeworld, Prime Singer Eris coordinated with resistance leaders across 17 worlds. The Melodians were known as a peaceful species, but they had developed advanced defensive technologies that could be very effective in warfare. "Our harmonic disruptors are ready," reported her chief engineer. "We can disable Vorthon ships without destroying them, allowing for capture and liberation of any prisoners they might be carrying." "Good," she replied. "This is not just about defeating the Empire. We must also rescue the populations they have enslaved over the years." Meanwhile, on Earth, the full scope of the human plan became clear. Choi Min-ho and Han So-young had been coordinating with resistance cells on every Vorthon-controlled world for months before the invasion even began. "The data packages have been transmitted," Choi Min-ho reported. "Every Allied fleet now has complete information about Vorthon ship designs, weapon systems, and communication protocols." "What about the biological warfare countermeasures?" Han So-young asked. Dr. Yang Jiwoo joined their conversation via secure communication. "I've sent the biological analysis to all Allied medical officers. If the Vorthons try to use any of their chemical weapons, we know exactly how to counteract them." The Emperor stood in his command center watching the tactical displays with growing horror. Red icons representing enemy fleets were appearing throughout Vorthon space faster than his officers could count them. "How many ships are we facing?" he demanded. Admiral Rexthor consulted his readouts. "At least 2,000 vessels, Your Majesty. Possibly more. Our sensors cannot get accurate counts because many of the enemy ships are using technology we don't recognize." 2,000, General Mordek said in disbelief. "The entire Imperial fleet only has 800 ships." Commander Veltrak brought more bad news. "Sir, we're also receiving reports of uprisings on our occupied worlds. The slave populations are rebelling and they seem to have weapons and coordination." Oh Tae-young, a human fleet admiral who had been secretly coordinating with alien allies for 2 years, took command of the combined human forces. His flagship, the Terran Defiance, was one of the few large human vessels that had survived the war by hiding in deep space. "All human ships. This is Admiral O," he broadcast. "Begin Phase 2 operations. Guide our allies to their targets and provide tactical support." Kang Soo-jin, serving as the diplomatic liaison between humans and their new allies, established communication with fleet commanders from all 17 species. Her job was to ensure that the massive combined force worked together effectively. "Melodian fleet, please coordinate with Cronin Battle Group 7, she transmitted. "Etherian ships, support the Zephyrian fast attack wings. Remember, we're stronger together than any of us could be alone." Jung Ho-seok, an intelligence officer working from a hidden base on the moon, tracked Vorthon fleet movements and transmitted real-time updates to all Allied forces. "Enemy battle group moving from Sector 12 to Sector 15, he reported. "Crystalline Collective ships are in position to intercept." The Crystalline Collective, a species of silicon-based life forms, had converted their massive mining ships into weapons platforms. Their vessels were slow but incredibly heavily armored and armed. "We acknowledge, human coordinator," came the reply in their harmonic voice pattern. "Our ships will crush the Vorthon fleet like we crush asteroids in our mining operations." Back in the Imperial Command Center, the Emperor realized that his forces were completely outmatched. The Allied fleets had superior numbers, better coordination, and the advantage of surprise. "Sir," Admiral Rexthor reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from 3 of our outer colonies. The local populations are joining the rebellion, and our garrison forces cannot maintain control." The Emperor slammed his fist on the command table. "This is impossible. How did they coordinate such a massive operation without us detecting it?" Kim Jae, who was being held under guard in the same room, answered calmly. "Because you never bothered to learn about the species you conquered, Your Majesty. You saw them as nothing more than resources to exploit. You never realized that they were intelligent beings capable of planning, organizing, and fighting back." General Mordek looked up from his tactical display. "Your Majesty, the enemy fleets will reach our core systems within the hour. I recommend we attempt to negotiate a surrender." "Never," the Emperor shouted. "The Vorthon Empire does not surrender." "Then the Vorthon Empire will be destroyed," Kim Jae said quietly. As if to emphasize his point, the building shook as explosions echoed from somewhere in the city. The first wave of Allied ships had reached Earth's orbit and was engaging the Vorthon occupation forces. "Sir," Commander Veltrak reported, "our forces in orbit are requesting immediate reinforcement. The enemy ships are using coordinated tactics we've never encountered before." The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the room. The Vorthon Empire had never faced a real military challenge. They had grown powerful by conquering weaker, isolated species one at a time. Now they faced a coordinated alliance of 17 species, each contributing their unique strengths and technologies to the fight. Moon Heywan, a military historian observing the battle from a safe location, began documenting what she realized would be remembered as the greatest military reversal in galactic history. Hour 1 of the Great Liberation, she recorded. The combined Allied fleets have engaged Vorthon forces across 12 star systems simultaneously. Initial reports indicate complete tactical superiority for the Alliance forces. Nam Kite, a former prisoner of war who had recently escaped from a Vorthon work camp, watched from the surface of Earth as alien ships battled in the sky above. For 3 years I worked in their mines, he said to his fellow escapees. They told us we would never be free again. They were wrong. The Emperor watched his mighty empire begin to crumble in real time. Fleet after fleet reported being overwhelmed by superior numbers and tactics. Colonies that had been secure for decades were falling to rebellion and invasion. Your Majesty, Kim Jae said, you still have one option left. The Emperor turned to him with hatred in his eyes. And what is that, human? Surrender now. And perhaps the Alliance will show you more mercy than you showed your victims. The battle for the galaxy lasted only 18 hours. What the Vorthon Empire had built over decades crumbled in less than a day, as the combined fleets of 18 species swept through their territory like an unstoppable force. Admiral Oh Tae-young stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the final Vorthon stronghold surrender. Around him, his officers worked calmly and efficiently, coordinating the largest military victory in galactic history. Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from the last 3 Vorthon battle groups, his communications officer reported. Acknowledged. Signal all Allied fleets to cease fire and prepare for occupation duties. The speed of the victory had surprised even the Alliance planners. The Vorthons, accustomed to fighting isolated and weaker species, had no experience dealing with coordinated attacks from multiple directions using different technologies and tactics. On the Melodian flagship, Prime Singer Eris reviewed reports from her fleet. How many Vorthon vessels did we capture intact? Over 400 ships, Your Excellency, her tactical officer replied. Our harmonic disruptors worked perfectly. We disabled their weapons and engines without destroying the vessels. Excellent. Those ships can be converted to help rebuild the worlds the Empire destroyed. War Chief Brutus of the Cronin fleet had a different perspective on the victory. His warriors had destroyed 67 Vorthon ships in direct combat, avenging decades of humiliation. Today our ancestors smile in the afterlife, he announced to his crews. The empire that enslaved us exists no more. Back on Earth, the Emperor sat in his former throne room, now stripped of its imperial decorations. He was surrounded by guards from multiple allied species, each representing a world his empire had conquered. Kim Jae entered the room accompanied by representatives from all 18 Alliance members. The group that had once been desperate defenders was now the leadership council of the galaxy's most powerful military alliance. Emperor Thexaval, Kim Jae began formally, you are charged with crimes against 17 species, enslaving billions of sentient beings, and conducting illegal wars of conquest throughout this region of the galaxy. The Emperor looked older than he had just hours before. The weight of total defeat showed in his slumped shoulders and dull eyes. The Collective Council has decided your fate, continued Kang Soo-jin, speaking as the Alliance's diplomatic coordinator. You and your senior officers will be tried for war crimes. Your empire's territory will be divided among the species you conquered, allowing them to rebuild their civilizations. And what of your legal justification for this attack? The Emperor asked bitterly. Judge Arbitrator Quell appeared again via hologram to answer. The activation of the Terran Defense Pact was completely legitimate under galactic law. Moreover, your empire's crimes against multiple species justified the Alliance's actions under the principles of galactic justice. Bei In-soo, serving as the human representative for post-war negotiations, stepped forward with a data tablet. The terms of your surrender are simple. All enslaved populations will be freed immediately. All conquered territories will be returned to their original inhabitants. All Vorthon military vessels will be surrendered to the Alliance. The Emperor had no choice but to agree. His military was destroyed, his colonies were in rebellion, and his own officers were beginning to surrender individually to avoid prosecution. "I accept," he said quietly. The formal surrender took place in the same hall where humanity had surrendered just 2 days earlier, but now the roles were completely reversed. The Emperor signed document after document, each one dismantling another piece of his former empire. Representatives from across the galaxy attended to witness the event. Species that had been enemies, or neutrals, now wanted to establish diplomatic relations with the powerful new alliance. Moon Haiwan documented every detail of the historic moment. The signing of the Vorthon surrender marks the end of the most oppressive empire in this region of the galaxy and the beginning of a new era of cooperation among free species. Nama Kite, the former prisoner of war, was given the honor of reading the proclamation of liberation to the assembled crowd. His voice shook with emotion as he spoke. Today, billions of beings across 17 worlds wake up as free citizens instead of slaves. The nightmare of the Vorthon Empire is over. The crowd erupted in cheers that seemed to go on forever. In the weeks that followed, the massive task of rebuilding began. The Etherians shared their advanced technology with species that needed to repair war damage. The Melodians provided medical aid to populations that had suffered under Imperial rule. The Krons helped establish new defense forces for newly liberated worlds. Dr. Yang Jiwu was appointed to head the new Galactic Medical Council, which would ensure that the biological weapons used by the Empire were never employed again. "We have a responsibility," she told her staff, "to make sure that the suffering inflicted by the Empire never happens to anyone else." Choi Min-ho and Han So-young were tasked with establishing the new alliance's communication network. Their experience coordinating the rebellion made them perfect for linking the 18 member species together. "It's amazing," Choi Min-ho observed, "how much we accomplished when we worked together instead of fighting alone." Park Hyun was promoted to admiral and given command of the Alliance's patrol fleet, responsible for maintaining peace in the former Imperial territory. "A week ago, I was running for my life," he told his crew. "Now we're the guardians of galactic peace. Life can change very quickly." The formal establishment of the Galactic Liberation Alliance took place 6 months after the Vorthon surrender. Representatives from all 18 species signed the founding charter in the same hall where the Emperor had once held court. Kim Jae was elected as the Alliance's first Secretary General, a position that rotated among the member species every few years. "This alliance was born from necessity," he said in his acceptance speech, "but it will continue because we have learned that we are stronger together than apart." The former Vorthon territories were divided fairly among the species that had originally inhabited them. Each world was given the resources and support needed to rebuild their civilization. Judge Arbitrator Quell and the Korth Confederation formally recognized the Alliance as a legitimate galactic power, equal to any other major civilization in the galaxy. Years later, at the Galactic Academy established on the former Imperial capital world, Dr. Yang Jiwu taught courses on the Terran Gambit, the strategy that had turned apparent defeat into ultimate victory. Students often ask me, she would tell her classes, how humanity knew that losing the war would lead to winning the peace. The answer is simple. We studied history, we understood law, and we never forgot that intelligence is more powerful than brute force. Nam Kitai, now serving as the Alliance's Director of Liberation Affairs, often spoke to groups about his experience. As a prisoner of war and his role in the Great Victory, the Empire thought they had broken us, he would say. They never understood that suffering can make people stronger, not weaker. The final scene took place 10 years after the liberation, in Kim Jae's office at the Alliance headquarters. He was now an elderly man, but his eyes still held the same quiet intelligence that had orchestrated the galaxy's greatest military reversal. A young diplomat from a newly contacted species asked him, "How did you know the plan would work? What if the Vorthons had learned about the ancient treaties?" Kim Jae smiled the same slight smile he had worn in the Emperor's throne room all those years ago. "The most important thing I learned in my career as a diplomat," he replied, "is that the most powerful weapon in the galaxy is not a warship or an energy cannon. It's knowledge. And the most dangerous enemy is not the one who threatens you with Violence, but the one who doesn't bother to read the fine print. He gestured to the window, which looked out over a city where beings from 18 different species worked together in peace. You see, young colleague, sometimes the best way to win a war is to lose it first. But you must be very, very careful to lose it in exactly the right way.